working from spreadsheets with data, one of the ways that we can work with is just to import our spreadsheet with data. And I already preloaded one, which is visible in our Data Explorer. Let me quickly explain to you what that is. Our Data Explorer allows source systems to be queried and used for reverse engineering. And this could be online database connections, like for instance my Willybot here has a Northwind database that has a DBO schema, and in there we have customers. And this is a live database connection. I can see the different columns in there. I can see how many customers I have in a specific city. By selecting the city, it just accounts how many times city is actually recorded in that table. If I combine that with our contact title, you can then see that we have 3 owners in Mexico and we have 3 sales representatives in London. It allows us to navigate the data in a simple way and a quick way. And the spreadsheet that I just imported shows up in a similar fashion. I'm just going to quickly show you that we have a similar set of data from the Titanic data, all the passenger information, and I can show you that we can have a list of cabins, and then it iterates automatically how many occurrences of that cabin is in our passenger list. And you can see that there's a lot of cabins here that occupy 2 people. I can combine that with different things, but I can also look at how many people came from a specific hometown. And then you can see from the entire passenger list that we have 70 people originally coming from New York. And again, we can combine that with the sex in this case. So we got 40 people from London, 38 from New York, and then 32 male from New York. So we can use the Data Explorer to look at either our production systems for data or in the data of our spreadsheets, and even reverse engineer from offline data catalogs, if you will. And I'm just going to show you how to work this into an information model. First of all, we need to check if the data is unique. So we're going to click on the customer ID, which is, as you can see, every code occurs only once. So we can assume that our customer ID is unique for customers. So I'm going to drag that right into our vocabulary. And it now creates the DBO customers with the DBO customer ID. And I'm just going to drag that into a diagram just to get a visual here. Let me pick a different style so it's not too convoluted. And this is where we have our first object type that represents customers. I'm going to add the company name to it, and CaseTalk already knows that it's related to customers. So it just builds a structure to resemble that, and drag it in here, and you can now see that it has the company name. It adds default sentences to it, which obviously still need editing, and I can add the contact name, I can add the city, I can add the region, all of that stuff that comes from that table. And that is a very quick way of building an information model based on existing data structures in operational or in spreadsheets, etc. So from this structure we can then start building it up. Let's go back to our Data Explorer, because there are probably more places where we can find city. We have an employee with employee ID. This is also cool. Good stuff. Last name, surname, very helpful. And then again the city. Oh, we may need country in there too. So let's see if customers has country. Yep, customer has country as well. So we're going to drag all of that in addition to what we have here into our selection, and let's just do an automatic layout. It saves a bit of time. And recenter. That helps if you have a lot of data and you want an initial layout. And here show something interesting, because it doesn't quite know, or at this point we're looking at flat implementation data structures. So there's a table and it has a column for city, but it didn't have a separate table for cities and countries. So we would really like to have this be populated in a unique way and in a reusable structure. It's a little tricky, because one of the things that we can do is say, okay, we want country to become an object type, which makes it a reusable element and not just the name of the country. So it would be the country with a country name. So as soon as we enter that, you will see that this initial label type then is promoted to an object type, and it's being substituted in there. It's adding some constraints to it to make it coherent, and then we have the country name right there. The city is a slightly different beast, because even though we're talking about cities and countries, clearly the cities can be repetitive over countries. We have an Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and I'm sure there's one in the US, seeing there's a lot of immigrants there. And I'm not just talking about New Amsterdam or New York, but many city names occur in different countries. So instead of directly saying, okay, my customer lives in London, I would like to say London in the UK. And I need to add a little bit of a different structure here. First of all, I'm going to introduce a new phrase or an object type expression for a city. And I'm doing it in a classical way so that you can actually see what's going on. I'm doing the city of London, UK. I'm going to make that an object type expression so I can reuse that phrase. This is what I would like to talk about when I'm talking city. Now, because I already have city, I'm just going to call that my city new, because I need to have unique names in there. Apply to that. And now this is the city name as I have it here. But I want to replace all of that, so I'm just going to call that full out the city name. And then the UK in this case is our country that we already have right here. I'm going to press apply, complete at this level, and then the city name. Oh, I made a comma error. We'll fix that later on. Let's see if this would work. That is the country name. Yes, we can match that, and it's all good. More examples not needed. So let's drag our city new into the model, and it has the city name. And you can see that it really, this old city, which is a little bit too short to my taste, needs to be replaced. So one of the things we can do now is go to this part of our fact types, which is the role, and we can make that different and say, okay, we want to alter the plate by city into city new. And it will restructure that, and the same for the customer city that we also want to have connected to our city new. And now we can get rid of the city here, delete it, and it should be fine. Now the interesting part is, and then we're going to rename this to city, obviously, because it needs to fall back in line with what we're talking about. There is an implied relationship. When I talk about customers and customer city, that already implies, and you can see it by the highlighting, if I select the customer city, all I need to be able to construct customer city is the highlighted path in blue customer city from customers, and I need city with city name and country with country name, which makes this little fact type a little redundant. So we can now delete this, and I don't want to delete the full structure, so I'm going to use this panel here so that I can choose what to delete, and I only want to delete this one, not the entire structure. And now you can see that it will end up in a similar path happens here, where I have employees for a city, but I already implied that a city is in a specific country, so I don't need to add this fact type. I'm going to delete that one. Oh, not from here, because I don't want to delete too much. From here, and just that one. Okay. Now, to validate a few constraints, to meet a few constraints, I need to tell CaseTalk that this combination of city name and country is unique, so I'm going to add a unique constraint on top of that. And the other part is I only talk about cities and countries within the context of a customer or within the context of employees. So I'm just going to select the city. I'm going to add a totality constraint here that basically says city must occur in customer city and or employee city. And as soon as I add that, and you can see it by this little graphical icon here, I can start generating a logical model. So let's do a refresh here and give it some time to process all of that. It's doing the model verification to make sure that it's not modeled any wrong. Do the transformation and then come back with a diagram. And here you can see how it represents the database structure. It has the employees table, it has the customers table. And on top of that, because we added actually more meaning to it, instead of everything just being flat columns, we can now derive a set of database views for city, and I can generate a database view for the countries, which is a union from different tables. So now I can also explore all the cities and all the countries across the database. So okay, so from this representation, it actually is a visualization of what we have in our production database. So let me go back to our data explorer, being able to collect using control to do multiple columns. Cool. What we can do now is also not only document and revisualize what we have in our production environments, we can use multiple sources to connect to our fact model. And to do that, I have this little icon here that says catalog mappings. It shows the connections that it remembered by me dragging and dropping all those little parts. And you can see that if I want to populate my employees and employee ID, I need to follow employee ID from the employee table in the Northwind database, etc., etc. So this is the way that we can now start documenting our existing databases and verify that it's all correct. So let me just see if I can do a first name, for instance, employee's first name. That was this one. I can simply drag and drop that from our catalog, and it is now part of the documentation of our information models. So what we're doing here is basically looking at our production environment, just looking at the data catalogs, and try to make a very rich information model from that while keeping the lineage intact. So for the people that use CaseTalk to conceptually model and add the language so that the domain experts can verify it, it's a means to start verifying if the implementation is actually aligning with the business needs, and document where it actually does align with the business needs. And one more thing that we then of course need to do is, if we go back to our fact views, we need to fix the generated default expressions. And CaseTalk is going to help us with that, because if we just do a model verification, it will come with a lot of hints to make sure that we complete our model in a way that it makes sense in a verbal way too. And you can see here that all of the generated expressions still need to be annotated. So for instance, this one, I'm going to double click that. It shows up with a little expression, and remember in our other videos this needs verbiage. So customer, oh, not this one, let's put it here, lives in city, and then here we add the little verbiage that says customer. So now we have customer with customer ID, lives in city, comma, and we could even, to make it really rich, add the verb country in there. And as soon as we do that, it should refresh here. Let's do F5. You can now see that the customers live in the city. And we have grammar added to it. It says customer ID, lives in city, comma, country. So this is how you build a very rich documentation based on catalogs that are very technical and implemented in some system, but not necessarily represent how the domain experts actually talk about the data. So we saw the logical model for it. We can generate with ease the UML class. We don't have any other data, so a knowledge graph will not render any results. That actually needs examples. We have the classic entity relationship model, custom map. Again, we need more data to make that usable. But this is a way to start verbalizing and documenting our source systems. And again, I can add information here. Customer ID 1, lives in London, in the country UK. And you can see now that it starts populating that with data, and it makes it easier for the domain experts to verify and validate this information model so that we know that our production system actually makes sense. And we need that for migration, alignment to data warehousing, and all of the BI efforts and source systems need to be documented. And this is a way to approach that.